Hello. Okay, so we have a little story to tell. I'm going to turn it over to you for one. So you just have to hear this. This is just fun.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'd like to say I shouldn't have said that she dragged me. She invited me.
Stop.
Also,
Dragged, kicking and screaming, but go ahead. That's not the story.
My story is that because I got to talk to Glenda and talk about the problem that we have with our daughters, my daughters was over a dog. And I put it out there and I said, I am going to put this out to the divine and ask for his help, that he could help me solve this problem. And at lunch, I got a text from my daughter that the other daughter returned the dog. So I left crying. It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
I think that's hilarious.
Thank you.
And the daughters didn't know that conversation was going on, mind you. But I think that's fun. So do you think the daughters are going to talk to each other?
They will. She says she needs time to process it.
Oh, yeah. In other words, she's got her tail between her legs.
And then I sent her a message.
No dog pun intended.
I sent her a message and said, don't play the victim. You've got too much to do in your life. Get on with it.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah. How funny. Get them both a cat. All right, so. Okay, so. One of the important lessons that will be with you forever now is to get yourself into present time. Present time was one of the great teachings of Jesus and Buddha at all times. Be here now, get here now. All the great mystics of the East, for every Eastern tradition, get yourself here now. There is no other place. And while that is a great mystical teaching, you're going to discover as well, we are discovering, that that is also the secret to your health. That is also essential to your health. And what I learned in doing medical intuitive readings, is that every reading, every choice you make is a choice. Every time you make a choice, have an action, have a reaction, anything, no matter how big or how little, anything that connects you to an illusion is a spark that creates an anchor. Every anchor creates a relationship with what becomes known as time and space. So every time, here you are, you make a little choice, there you are. You create psychic weight. And every ounce of weight equals weight. And that's time. And that's how you create a relationship to time and space, through that, which is why time is relative. If you don't have a lot of psychic weight connected to you, you will be a fast traveler. You'll heal fast. You'll get things fast. You'll process it fast. Your body won't age as fast. You'll be somebody who might be 90 but looks 40. And I'm not exaggerating. And it's because your tissue's not rotting fast because you don't have a lot of cell memory in it. You simply have light. Now, the mystics, they talk about how in the East, they tell stories of how gurus levitate, of how some of the mystics bilocate of how the teacher Jesus walked on water. What these stories have in common is that they are stories of physical phenomenon, stories of what the spirit or the soul can do over the matter world. That's what they are. They're stories of how thought commands form, of how energy has dominion over matter. That's what these stories are. And we call them miracles because to the rational mind, to the world of the first floor, when you're in the first floor of your house, everything for you has to be obvious, has to be logical, has to be realistic, has to be practical. You love that word. You even expect guidance from God to be practical. I simply have to know how this is going to turn out before I do it. I need a guarantee. I need to see the outcome. You think that heaven operates like a pension plan, and that somehow or other God is a great employer that operates just like your insecurities, and you are absolutely mistaken. Totally mistaken. It's exactly opposite that. Heaven operates on faith and in the moment, not with long-range insecurities so that you are taken care of, because the whole point of heaven is you are so scared of the earth. You think I'm going to indulge that? You need to think like an angel. Do you think heaven's going to indulge your fears or walk you into them? What do you think? If I was your angel, what do you think? I'm as close a bad example as you're going to get, but it will do for the moment. As we come on to Halloween, this may be. But you're getting my point. That heaven is not in the business of indulging your fears, but getting you to break through them. Getting you to break through them. So when you make choices in which you have fallen for a fear, oh no, I'm alone. Oh no, this scares me. Oh no, oh no. What you've done is you've created another anchor, and you've added psychic weight. And what that does is this. So when you pray for guidance, so you are now, everything about the universe is law, including the law of synchronicity, the law of coincidence, the law that makes immediacy happen. This is vertical and horizontal, or this is Kairos time, and this is Chronos. So this is how our watch works, hour to hour to hour. I've never known how to illustrate that. But this is immediate. What is the speed of a miracle? We call a miracle because it happens beyond the time of hour by hour by hour. How could anything happen that fast? It must be a miracle. Why this little tube of medicine says you're going to be sick for 6 weeks. It says it. Take this medicine for 6 weeks. It says you'll be sick for 6 weeks. It says right on the label. How can you possibly get out of this in 6 seconds? It's just not possible because it says you will be sick for 6 weeks. It says it right there. And you're not. This here is a calculator. You don't see it, but it is. This is hour by hour. This is immediate. Thought into form. Now, Jesus, Buddha, other gurus, They were complete thought into form. They didn't have any anchors, none. So when Jesus, for example, healed, he would say, I love this, I felt the power go through me and into the woman. The woman who was bleeding, I felt it just whoosh, like this. It was totally in the immediate. When some miracles happen, you could say, for example, in this situation with your daughters, you prayed for something and a resolution came in the immediate. It worked. It happened. Okay, in the immediate, a resolution. Most illnesses are not healed, whether they're an illness between daughters or family, but most illnesses in your body are not healed at the speed of light. But when they are, we call that a miracle because it doesn't make sense to our rational mind, which is so caught up on the clock that we think all events in life have a certain time to them because we've assigned time to them. Mourning should take, M-O-U-R-I-N-G, should take a year. You shouldn't be able to mourn in less than that. What's wrong with you if you do? You shouldn't be able to heal from this in less than that. So we have collectively, and this is important, we have unwritten agreements in our tribal mind, first floor, about how long certain things should take to heal. Now, we've never met on that. We've never said, let's put our thoughts together and weave a consciousness that we agree upon in terms of how long should this illness take to heal. How long should we allow ourselves to be upset about this? How long should we hold on to a resentment when this happens? How long should we mourn for the loss of a partner? How long should we resent a divorce? How long? Now, we've never collectively said, well, I'll take a vote. I say 2 years, 2.5. Do I have a 3? Okay. We come to an agreement. 3.4 years for mourning. Are we in agreement? We're in agreement. And we psychically lock it in, and it becomes archetypal. It becomes an archetype. It becomes a pattern that somehow we've all collectively agreed to. And what happens when that happens is that all of us, we don't call each other up, but when we see someone step out of the pattern who starts dating 6 weeks after her mate dies, why we alert each other. And how we do that is, did you see what she's doing? The hussy. That little trollop. Shame on her. Because it's violated a collective we've agreed upon. And we are communicating through that wire. And we're reinforcing how each other. And though you're sitting at the kitchen table, you think, I'm getting an archetypal phone call, I'll be right back. You don't go to the archetype and say, oh no, another one? She stepped out of our timing, our agreed upon timing? But some part of you knows. Because you're in that tribal mind. And if all of us, for example, decided, why are we attached to this idea that that cancer can't be healed? Why are we attached to that? Where did that come from? Someone told us that, and therefore we told our body that. And therefore we have that thought form. We create our reality. Why have we been told that we should live this long? Or what the things that we believe we've inherited. And so we reinforce that. We've been told we're the only ones who occupy this whole bloody universe. It's all ours. We just can't get off the planet. The things we've been told are so stupid. This whole thing started with an explosion somewhere out there called the Big Bang. Oh, really? If you possibly believe that, well, maybe you do, but nothing sounds more absurd to me than a great big, huge explosion that started billions and billions and billions of galaxies. Really? Anyway, maybe. But my bet's on something else.
Can you say what your bet is on?
I have no idea.
I believe in the Big Bang.
I have no idea. But I can't believe that an explosion started the whole of creation. The whole of creation, when they don't even know where creation ends, much less started. It's just like, and they don't even know how many dimensions there are. And they haven't even been in contact with other dimensions. And they're still convinced we're the only ones on this planet, and they've come up with how it all started. Of all the narcissistic, egocentric things, they can't even get along without blowing themselves up. But they figured out how life began. No. I have that much respect. Well, that much. Okay. So, the point is, our moment here is so incredible for you to, this is where I think we are. I think that one of the illusions we have is that we think thousands of years ago is a long time. That's nonsense. That's ridiculous. Thousands of years ago is a blink of an eye. A blink of an eye. If you charted your family, I mean, my great-grandfather that already takes me back to the late 1800s. And we're already in, so if you go back, you'll see that these centuries pass very fast. Very, very fast. My mother's almost a century old. And that's just one person. Centuries pass very fast. And if 20 people lived to be her age and I stacked them on, I'd be back at the time of Jesus. 20 people. That's you. And that would get me back to the time of Jesus. That's not a lot of people's lifetimes. I'm looking at them right here. So my point is that the knowledge from that time is something quite profound. And in this moment, there's something happening where that knowledge is animating. And this is what I want you to consider. Back in the time of if you were purely vertical, in present time, is there time? If you were in present time, how would you relate to time? You couldn't. You couldn't. Now, what would your life look like if you couldn't relate to time? Just use your imagination. Get to your penthouse and use your imagination for a minute. Just get really crazy. What would your life look like? How would you see if you couldn't relate to time at all? At all.
It would just be a present experience.
Okay. And how would you think about yourself? How would you think about yourself?
You couldn't.
Yes, you could.
Yeah, you could.
Yes, you could. How would you think about, and stop, don't use the word you, it's I. I'm asking you, how would you think about how would you reframe your life if you thought about yourself only in present time? Only vertical. Good. And what would that look like? Talk about something in your life now. Not a sentence. Use something. See, I'm re-languaging you. I'm re-languaging you.
Never ending.
Okay, but this is fun. But but this is fun. But I want you to apply it to something that's actually in your life. If you're working on an illness, if you're working on a relationship, if you're working on a struggle, if you're working on something that you're trying to, here's a word that has no history. You can only use it in present time. It's holy. Transform. You can't use that word historic. You can't bring it to the first floor. It doesn't fit there. Now then, you only can use it in present time. So, you're yeah? Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh, stick with me. Grab onto my tail. You are transforming. So I am transforming something. I am actively transforming. Every thought, everything I'm thinking, everything I'm eating, everything I'm doing is transforming what? Now this is you, your belief system. I'm transforming, I am actively transforming how I feel about, I'm actively transforming my sadness. I'm actively transforming my sorrow. I'm actively transforming how I see this problem, and I'm creating a solution with every breath I take.
It's your reality.
That's right, and you're actively transforming. But what part of it? What part of it?
My physical cellular structure.
Totally. I'm actively transforming right now. You choose it. I'm actively transforming my depression. I'm actively transforming my illness. I'm in the action of it with every breath I take. I'm not just, you're describing what I'm doing as a rebirth. You're observing me. But what I'm actually saying to you is that I'm giving you an example of what I want you to do, which is to think in terms of, I am now living my active transformation. And I am now going to think not about talking about transformation, but I'm going to take that word and apply it to within myself and recognize I'm transforming my body right now, even as I'm talking to you, and I'm now active about it. I'm transforming. What if I had an illness, and even as I'm talking to you, I am in the action of thinking that even while I'm talking to you, my active teaching is simultaneously healing me. And I'm transforming that, and I'm applying the grace of teaching to transforming my illness, because that's the power of being in present time. I'm not allowing myself to go and stress over, but I'm also ill. But this, and what about that? I'm trying to illustrate that I'm not allowing myself to hemorrhage, but instead I'm staying in present time, and I'm staying whole, and will say, everything I'm doing is serving my healing, and I'm consciously doing that. And I would say to myself, like a living prayer, everything I do, how I serve you, is serving my health, is serving my healing, is serving you. Everything you do serves me. And the way in which I treat each of you with kindness is treating myself with kindness. And this is my constant prayer. Am I making sense now? So that I will absorb every single thing as some holy particle that becomes part of my transformation and give it back out to you. And this is how you live in present time instead of losing yourself hemorrhage-wise. Now are you with me? Okay, so hold that thought. Here's a pause button. I'm hitting a pause button. And come back with me to the age of Pythagoras, to the age of the Ten Commandments, to the age of the mystery schools, Plato Aristotle, these wonderful, wonderful teachers. To the age of the Egyptians, to the building of the pyramids, to the monoliths, to these times. I can't prove this, but I can't stop thinking about this era, and I've come to this perception because of you, because of doing readings, because of this calculation on our health, because of recognizing that the more psychic weight you carry, the denser you are. The more time it takes for you to heal. The more time it takes for you to do everything. The more weight you carry, the heavier your psyche. So you become like dense, thick ice. And that in the ideal mystical way, in the perfect way of timelessness, you would be like mist, as if when ice melts, it becomes mist. It's the same substance, except that as mist, it's porous and malleable and not yet frozen. So it's the same laws of science. But they're mystical laws, and you can work with them because they haven't solidified anything. Once they become the laws of science, they're more physically constrained. They're more physically constrained. When they're mist, you can dialogue with God and you have inspiration. You have inspiration. What do you want me to do with this before it turns to rain? Because rain chooses its spot, but mist is still wide open. Okay. But as it begins to densify, what you're collecting is time. As it densifies, you become less likely to be able to move and change. Every time we adapt an illusion, every time we attach ourselves to a form, the law of gravity, every time we gravitas, give weight to something, we are attaching time and space to something. We're dropping an anchor here, time and space. We're saying this thing really happened. This is an illusion that I am going to wrap my incarnation around. I'm going to use this illusion to learn a struggle in my incarnation. There was this pen means nothing to you. You've lived your whole life without this pen. You didn't even know it existed. And now if I suddenly said, but this is a magic pen, and every time it picks it up, it does calculations for me, and it tells me the winning lotto number. I cast a spell on you, and suddenly you want this pen with everything. You start thinking, well, maybe she's lying to me, but what if she's not? Because she's pretty cagey. And what if she's not lying to me? Just what if she's not? I don't know, but maybe she's not. But maybe I'll just take that pen anyway. Maybe I'll just put it on my pillow and sleep with it, and maybe I'll wake up with 3 numbers in my head. You never know. And all of a sudden, you start craving something. And you start giving gravitas to this pen. You start really wanting this pen. That's how you form a relationship with something that previously you didn't even know exists. You had no relationship to. It didn't mean anything to you whatsoever. But now you've incorporated it into your incarnation. You decided, I think I'll take this into my incarnation. That's what your life is, this shopping cart deciding, I'll take that into my incarnation, and I'll take that. I'll have that relationship in my incarnation, and I'll take this one, and I'll take that one. And Buddha says they're all illusions. You can have any one you want. And it doesn't really matter whether you want this one, or this one. It doesn't matter. They're all illusions. One relationship is as good as another. You think, oh, no, no, this is the love of my life. No, it isn't this time. Any more than you're the love of that person's life. None of that's true. But you need to tell yourself that. Because that's how we talk to each other. And that's an archetype. You think the love of life is an archetype. It's totally an archetype, but that's something we need to tell ourselves. But that too is an illusion. Now, God, do I take the romance out of things, don't I? Oh. What?
Question. So I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying, but there's also the idea that we incarnate with certain souls that have a plan. Let's
Sure.
say you're
Contracts. We have contracts.
contracts, right? So how does that work with contracts? I mean,
It works. That doesn't, so you're projecting romance onto contracts.
yeah, perhaps,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Damn.
Damn. So that contract is also an illusion, but it's an illusion that gets you out of the illusion once you figure out the illusion.
You know what? I think, no. Illusions are what we bring to the party. Okay? It's not, it's not an illusion, for example, that you have a very Earth Mother archetype. You have a very Earth, you.
I do?
Yeah.
Oh.
You have a very Earth Mother archetype. That's part of your archetypal network.
Oh.
You have that. Okay, that's not that's, everybody has their archetypes, okay? Archetypes are part of the psychic field. But what illusion is then becomes how I decide to interpret it. How I decide to interpret it. I decide all Earth Mothers are this, and all Earth Mothers are that. And because you're an Earth Mother, your house is green, and it looks like this, and it looks like that, and it should, and Earth Mothers, and all Earth Mothers are this. It's my interpretation that's the illusion. You see? My projection, the way I think you should be because of that. Are you with me here? That's where we get into illusions. Is that what I think that your archetypal pattern, how you should be because of what I think. And that's how we start what's called projecting on each other. You know, the way I think you should be, and da-da-da-da. This is, and the way rescuers think you should love me because I rescued you. You should feel this way about me. All of that is illusion. Why should I feel anything about you? Because you've done your job. You've done your job. You see what I mean? It's not my responsibility to fill in your empty places. You've done your job.
So in a sense, we're doing that also with our own lives.
Yeah.
Trying to stay in the moment and not be creating illusions moment to moment, but just staying present.
That's Buddha. You see, this is the genius of the teachings of Buddha, which is that, honestly, and this is high voltage. This is like sitting in your penthouse. This is the kind of, you know how there are certain desserts that are so rich you can only take a little and you got to get out of there? This is one of those teachings that's so rich and such a high truth. And the teachings, there are so many mystical stories where the student is blinded temporarily because the teaching is so potent. And they have to go away until the soul recovers. And one of the teachings is to learn to take your own life impersonally. Your own life. Your own life. Now that you can think, wow, that, and then you think, wow, whoa, whoa, I'm putting the brakes on that. Because that is so overwhelming. And yet, there's no more great, there couldn't be a greater wisdom and a greater incredibleness than really getting what that is. Than to take your own whole life totally impersonally and step into that truth. Step into that, which is, there's nothing personal in my life. This world wasn't created for me. All right, I can deal with that one. I mean, the planet was here long before I got here, and the planet's going to be here after I leave, and the sun and the moon and the stars, they were here long before I got here. Okay, all right, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. This whole universe was not created for me. I'm good with that. Okay. And then the next, which says, there's nothing about my physical form that was created for me. I have a physical form, but I'm just one of billions and billions of humans in the birth and death cycle. We're good. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I have friendships and relationships. Bonds were not created for me. We are a bonding species. So I'm good with that. Okay. But as we get more into our personal, you get into your archetypes. I have a teacher archetype, a very strong teacher archetype. So I need to teach. It's impersonal. I just teach. Do I have to teach you? No. But you are the ones I'm teaching these days. And as soon as I see you, I'm grateful. But I didn't have to teach you. Am I saying that clearly? But you are both personal and impersonal to me. And that makes it accurate. That gives me the sight to, that's the way teachers should always be with their students. They should never teach students so that they are loved. Ever, never, 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 never. They should do it so that they pass on truth and knowledge. That's the calling of the teacher. But not affection. Never, never, ever. It is knowledge. You have to know your place. You have to know your place. And with parents, it is to pass on instruction. It is to hold that center of love, loyalty, but don't cross it with friendship. And when parents try to be friends, they become competitive, and that's where the waters get muddy. Anyway, enough. So, here is what I have to explain to you in terms of you forming a relationship with time and space. This is a technical thing, and this is how you'll create your relationship to God and your fear of holy language. And it's really kind of caught up right in here. I used to think, when I was looking at why people didn't experience miracles, in the Catholic tradition, for example, they always make it look like, well, you didn't light enough candles, you didn't suffer enough, yada, 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 yada. It's not. It's not. The reason is people hold on to their anchors because of the terror of the speed of the light. For every anchor you pull, you change your relationship to time and space. You change the floor you live on. You change the speed at which you comprehend truth. Now, if I lose you anywhere along the line, you have to put your hand up, because truth is AKA God. You change the speed at which the clarity of vertical consciousness comes into you. you change the speed at which you are capable of comprehending things. I'm going to give you a baby example. You walk in a room, and you say, I wonder what's wrong with that person. And instantly you go, whoosh, I know, but you don't want that to be the answer. You don't want it to be the answer. So now you have to take the vertical information and you have to begin to contaminate it with denial. Denial is when you put in something that you know is not true, but you tell yourself that narrative anyway because you don't want the truth. So what you're building in is an anchor so that anytime your intuition says this person's cheating on you or this kid's on drugs or whatever, your child is, hanging out with an alien from Mars, whatever it is, you don't want it to be that. You have to run to your anchor with the false narrative. No, really, they're just overtired. And what you're doing is you're creating a lie, a false narrative, that slows down your intuitive perception from hitting your gut, from hitting your heart. From hitting your heart. So that the speed at which your life changes in the physical on the first floor is slowed down. See, here's the lever. So instead of having it go from thought to bam, form, instead of what's the speed of a miracle is when the light heals the form instantly. It would happen all the time, but most people can't take the instant. So they have to press the lever of time. And we do this by putting in what Buddha would call illusions. We stack illusions in. And illusions is like a lever of weight, psychic weight, that creates time. Which is why eventually the truth is, when the truth comes out, the lever goes back here and crack. The situation changes and people say, I knew it all the time. Are you with me? So this is how we create our relationship with time. And it's always the case, as soon as a lever snaps back and you let out a big truth, what you also do is you'll go through a ritual. Here we go again. You'll go through a ritual and you'll clean out a lot of the debris that goes with this big one. You'll clean out a closet. You'll clean out this. You will reorder a lot of the first floor that cleans out a lot of the supportive pieces to this big narrative. So that I don't want any piece of this narrative around. Maybe you'll get a haircut. Maybe you'll change something, but you will do something that alters the world, that maintained this narrative. Now, do you have any questions about this? Yes, now you can.
Thanks. Okay.
Wait, would you? So the light, mind you, let me just say, this is the speed of God in your life. And narratives are how you put in the, I don't want to hear you that fast. Just so I'm explaining to you what you do. I don't want to hear you that fast. In the meantime, you have to understand we are in the age of intuition. So the problem is our wiring has been awakened to hear this fast. And how many of you might think of yourselves as healers or in the intuitive arts or this? So you've opened up your wiring to work this way while dealing with narratives that go this way. So this is how you're working on the inside. You know, like those mouse traps? Go.
Do
do we avoid this, adding weight or denial, to avoid pain?
We avoid it for all kinds of reasons. That's one. We avoid it also because clear perception always means we have to make a choice. It also, our life, the capacity to see clearly means our life will change. It means that we see the world differently than the way other people do. One man, for example, in a workshop said to me once, I think it was in Ireland, and it was very profound. He got up and he said, I've got to leave here right now. And I was talking about forgiveness. And he said, and how forgiveness, the role forgiveness plays in why it's holy language. I didn't use that phrase, but the power of it. And he said, that's enough. I did use the building. And I said, holy language is like fifth floor. I mean, forgiveness is fifth floor, and why it's so essential to healing and the mystical role of forgiveness, that it's not a rational act. And he said, I know everything that you're saying is the truth, but I can't hear anymore because I'll have to live it. And I can't bear it because I still need to be angry. And I need my anger in order to survive with the people I live with. And it was the most astute answer. He said, they see my forgiving them as weakness. And they count on me forgiving them, and they walk all over me all the time. They don't get that I'm forgiving them from a different place entirely. It's got nothing to do with my weakness, but their weakness. And he said, I need my anger to survive. And he left. But he turns around and he says, but it's too late. But it's too late. I will never forget this man. And if you have no idea how much I have held him in my heart, in my prayers, because it's too late. So why we stop and we try and sabotage ourselves is because when we get to the place where truth is so powerful, we no longer have a choice. Do you get that? Yeah. We no longer have a choice. When you finally have so much light in your eyes, you can't turn it off. You can't turn it off. So you have a small little window where you think you're playing with it, but you can't turn it off. That's it.
So talking about the floors, does staying in thoughts that are minutia, that aren't your calling, that aren't the biggest things, to keep you as well, does that create anchors or keep you from getting to the penthouse? In other words, should you consciously be stepping out of thinking or thoughts that aren't holy, things that aren't holy language, that aren't in the moment?
Yeah.
So that you're...
Yeah. I mean, we all have distractions. I go shopping. No, we all have, the fact is, learn this. The object is not perfection. It is not perfection. Get out of that. Don't ever think that way, ever. The object is not perfection, and it's not to go live on the penthouse all the time, and it's not. Forget that. Forget it. The object is to do as good as you can. And the object is to live the truth as well as you can. Like, you all know that murder is wrong. Am I right? Is it hard for you not to murder? Have you gotten that far? So, no, I'm not being funny. I'm actually asking you a serious question. Is it hard for you not to murder? Okay, so all right, so we're past that, right? Now, no, seriously. You're past that animal instinct. You're past that animal instinct. You don't even have to think about it anymore. So the brightness of that light that tells you, I don't think it's okay to murder, that light doesn't even bother you anymore, does it? All right, and the light that says don't steal, those things aren't yours. You don't have to be reminded of that, hopefully. That light, so the brightness of that light, you don't need sunglasses for that anymore. It's not there. And you aren't blinded by the light. That is simply cruel. You don't treat life that way, ever. You're not blinded by that. Little by little, the brighter light ceases to blind because you adapt to that brightness. And you don't even notice anymore. You simply have adapted to that brightness, and it comes through you. It comes through you because you're living it. You're living it. It's organic to you. It's flowing through you. It's flowing through you. It starts radiating from you. It's in your blood and in your bones. It's divine organics. It doesn't blind you anymore because it's in you. And I mean, like all the stories of Saul getting knocked off his horse and going blind, and all the little saints that Mary appeared to the little children, and they went, "Wow, is that bright?" And then they adapted. And all the saints in India, they would say this bright light came. Always heaven is in bright light when it visits. Always. And always we have to adapt to this purity and this bright light. Always it is us that needs to adapt to that purity. It's also the same thing when we have to adapt to another level in ourselves. It's always that, because it's so much power and it's so much light. It's very exciting. It doesn't excite a lot of people, but I can't get over it. I just can't get over it. I think it's so cool. What?
Is it lonely?
What?
The whole, going into the fear of the light, of wellness, of being well, of getting, it's the thing. Is it lonely?
What? How could that be lonely?
Well, the man that left the room in the last talk
Oh.
had to leave the room because the people around him couldn't go with him. So you have to leave. You sometimes have to leave the people around you to be in the light all the time. And isn't that painful and lonely? That's my question.
God almighty. I wish you could live in my brain. No, I'm seriously. Have a seat. You know, I do not get why I am so ecstatic in the world behind my eye. I don't get it. I don't get it. I actually don't get it. And sometimes I think, you're going to turn this off, and then what I'm going to do? I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue. I am on some buzzing grace that I have never known. I'm not kidding. It's like I snort some kind of wild-ass grace. I don't know. But I'm not kidding. If I can't act this, believe me, I'm not. I was flying home from wherever I was the other week, and I started laughing out the window. I was like on a mystical high, and I thought, you got to stop this. But I am in so much wonder about the nature of God and heaven and all of you. I am in wonder. I am in wonder. And it's like I want to turn it on in you like a faucet. I want you to be in wonder about yourselves. I want you to get that there's no such thing as your age. There's no such thing as a wallet. There's no such thing. All you need is to say, what do you want me to do? All you need to do is say, be with me. Hold me. It doesn't matter.
Hug you because I turned 60 today.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Really. The truth is, it's you've got to stop asking for proof and just decide, you know what? You're in everything. You're everything and in everywhere. And I have to stop asking for proof through my fears, because that's what you're doing. That's what you're up to. You are asking to see God through your fears. And that's a lousy prayer. Now that's not going to help you out. Instead you got to say, show off. Turn my life upside down. Except, like I don't like this. You're okay to say that, but you must have something in mind. Pray like me. You must have something in mind because you turned my life upside down. And you did a damn good job of it. So now do something here. You broke my heart. Broke my heart. So fill it up. Go ahead and have a good mourn. And then tell God, fill it up. Don't you dare pray to have your heart mend. You got too much room in there. Tell God, fill it up. It's a working instrument. Fill it up. That's how you pray. Pray so that heaven can show off with miracles. But here's the thing about miracles. A miracle is something that changes your life in present time. And if you've got a lot of attachments, and you're holding on for dear life, you got too much luggage. You got too much luggage. You're like, can I take this? No, you can't take it with. No, 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 no. No, no, and no. Beth has been my sister and friend for 30 years. So when I tell you the stories, she's a witness. This is the way I work. When I was in, I lived in Chicago, and where's my chair? I thought, I had a different career in mind for myself. I was going to be a great journalist, but I have no talent. I have no talent, and a great writer, and I have absolutely no talent. And heaven gave me this appetite to do something, and no talent, and a genius, and no interest. So that's how I was built. But anyway, and I remember walking down the street in Chicago and saying to a very dear friend, I've begun to die, and I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel my soul leaving my body, and I could feel it. And I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do, and I fell into such a depression. I mean, the true meaning of depression. I mean, I could hardly get out of bed. And then when I did get out of bed, I was sharing an apartment in Chicago with a girl that I went to high school with, and she was a nurse at Northwestern Hospital, and I could hear her leave in the morning, and then I would crawl out of bed and get dressed and just sit on the floor in my bedroom, shoving papers, I am not kidding you, from one side of a pile to the other and then back again, and not even able to comprehend what I had written on them. That's all I did all day. And when she would come back from work, when Susie would come back from work, I tried to make it look like I was writing something. It was so awful. And then, so I really, when someone says they're struggling with depression, Jesus, I remember that in my heart, my heart hurts for them. And I remember opening my eyes one morning. You know how you're in between that stage? You're not quite asleep, you're not quite awake, and you're a little bit in the drift, you're not quite on earth. And I didn't open my eyes yet, and I thought, maybe this life is over, and I'm simply remembering it. Then I opened my eyes, and I saw that hideous lime green dresser that I had. And I thought, oh my God, I'm still alive. It's really not funny when you thought you were disappointed to be alive. That's as close as I ever came to wanting the end of my life, was the feeling that I was disappointed to be alive. Wow. So that's when I said in my prayers, you've got to be kidding me. You know, what? And then when these two people that I hardly really knew said, come to New Hampshire, we need someone to help us with a publishing company. I would never in my wildest dreams, not ever, ever, never have moved to a town of 800 people to live on a farm all by myself for 10 years. Ever, never. Never, ever, never. No TV, nothing. This isolated life for 10 years. Ever, never. And that's where I popped as a medical intuitive. That's where it was my monastery for 10 years, all by myself, right? And the madness, but as soon as I heard that voice say, go, I went within 2 weeks. And all I had to cling to was go now. And every time I wanted to, I just say, when I would think, this is not easy, I heard that voice, here. And it just was so strong. And it was stronger than my need to leave, even though I wanted to a lot. But I didn't. It was so strong. And that presence was more real than you are to me. It was more real than looking at you. I mean, something had to be that real to keep you in a cabin away from everything. This is before computers. There was no Google, there was no internet. I didn't even have television, right? And then when it was time to leave, it was in 1982. It was 1992. And I walked I came back from England. I had been teaching over there. I walk in my front door of the farm, and I open up the door, and I had my coat on. I opened up the farm door. I had my suitcase, and I heard my guide again, and I said, go home now, leave. And I put the luggage down. I did not take my coat off. I went right to the phone, and I wasn't, at that time, now a decade had passed. I was a different person than the fragile little girl that came at age 29. And I wasn't sure, was I going to move to England? What was I going to do? So I called my mom, and my father had passed, and she was living with my aunt, and I said, could I move back home with you? I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know if I'm going to go to New York or Chicago, but I got to get out of here now. I was just told. She said, sure. And then I called the woman who cleaned the house and kept it while I was gone. And I said, could you and your husband help me pack up? Then I called my brother, and I said, can I fly you out here so you could drive me home in a U-Haul? Then I called the U-Haul and rented a U-Haul. And I did all that in 40 minutes, and then I took my coat off, and I was gone on Friday. So when I hear that voice, I hear the voice. And I never, ever not respond immediately in present time. Just like that. Just like that. I have no idea what the next stop is. I have no idea. But it's just like that. And I know that when heaven talks to you, it talks to you in that moment because that's the moment you're supposed to act. And that when you tell yourself, well, I'll act when my kids are older, or I'll act when this happens, you don't do that. You don't do that. When heaven gives you a command, you operate then. Right then. Right then. That's the moment. Because guidance is present time. You don't say, oh, I didn't hear it, and I didn't hear it, and I didn't like it, and that's not what I want to hear, and blah, blah. That's not how heaven works. It never works that way. So I need to circle back to Pythagoras and the Greeks just because I need to make this point. And it has to do with this. And that's that I believe in that era, way back when the laws were being revealed, the Ten Commandments, the Greek mystery schools, the laws of Pythagoras, astrology, astronomy, all these laws, numerology, that were pouring down in that era. It was as if the universe was talking to human beings and saying, this is how things work. This is how things work. Everything is mathematical. Everything, there's a music to the spheres. There's an order to the universe, and it's run on mystical laws, and the mystical laws are on the physical earth, the laws of science, and they run right through your system. And your physical body, your soul, operates on the mystical laws, and your physical body operates on the laws of science. You are a duplicate, as Jesus said, as above, so below. You are a duplicate of how the cosmos is designed. The soul is the mystical law, and the earth is the physical. Your soul is the mystical, your earth body is the scientific. We are exactly designed like the cosmos. There is no difference. Therefore, what we do to one is done to the whole. This is bio-spiritual ecological theology, bio-eco theology. We are one with the whole. Okay. And when I realized that, I thought it's no wonder that the churches are evaporating, those teachers are evaporating. It's no wonder that the end of the diaspora has come, that that the Dalai Lama said, I'm not incarnating anymore, that the end of the Catholic Church is coming with 2 popes that are splitting it in 2, that it is this profound end of an era, of an epoch that we are living, while the birth of a consciousness within us is happening. I can't even get over this profound time that we are living in. So, that's, yes.
If you apply this model collectively,
Yeah.
would you say that, I'll go back, when Donald Trump was elected, I knew immediately, I could see right through him. But what seems to be happening right now is, so the truth barometer went, we were delusional, we collectively in the United States must have been delusional to elect him. So what I see happening now is this barometer seems to be moving more towards the truth. So are you saying at a collective, at a more collective level in the United States that we are now coming more to a vertical level of truth in terms of whatever it is, not getting beyond our fears of whatever it was that we, decided on when I say we, it wasn't me. I mean collectively we nominated him.
All right. Remember I had the building up here?
Yeah.
When you talk about any person, you're asking me from here, but I have to answer you from here.
Okay.
Because it's not about Donald Trump, or it's not about Putin, or it's not about, because that's where illusion comes in. And it could have been anyone, and this is how does your soul see it versus how does our personality see it. So this is the art of God. This is how to see it through the art of your soul, okay? Okay? So this is speaking with your soul. This moment in time is so extraordinary that it's a passage of extremes, of great extremes, okay? And it's let's say the last 2,000 years have been dominantly male, masculine, animus, and the anima is trying to rise and balance. Are we in agreement here? Can we see this? Okay. And the law of balance is the fundamental law of the soul. Everything in you operates on the law of balance. Everything. As soon as you're too exhausted, you have to sleep as much to bring you back to balance, etc. So we operate on balance. Well, the masculine has shifted way over here, and which means the rational has shifted way over here, and all the masculine instincts have shifted way over here. And we have a world in which the female instincts are trying to awaken and shift and bring it to balance. Now, what we have on the external playing field are males that represent the males we have valued, and the male values we have valued as warriors, as in greed, as the belief that only men can save us. Every single illusion we have maintained in men is represented in these males. Every single one. Every single one. In the extreme. Do you understand that? In the extreme. On steroids. On steroids. These people represent what we have believed on steroids. That we can't be saved by a woman. We have to have a man. It's got to be a successful businessman. That money saves us. Money and power save us. The values that this creature of the night represents is exactly what the majority of people believe. Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And it scares me to think that they might walk into the voting booth and say on the outside, never again, and pull it when they get in. Because of the values that say we just can't trust not having money and power in charge. Okay? Because this versus consciousness. In the meantime, the feminine and a very different view is rising and trying to come through every which way, including through the masculine. And in this worldview that we're moving into, it's a view of androgyny. It's a view where the feminine's coming through the masculine and the masculine's coming through the feminine. And it's a very different view. So these two are at odds. Very seriously at odds. But I tell you they're at odds in you as well. Because within each of us is tremendous mistrust of that new world that is emerging. We don't know how it functions. We don't trust its stability because it hasn't proven itself to us, which is exactly why we need to do it, but it's also exactly why that other world, as treacherous as it looks, still has authority. Even though it is brutal and ugly, it's the devil you know. I'm telling you the way it is with people. I'm telling you the way it is with people. Okay, I'm going to give you a break. Take a 10-minute potty break. Go have some coffee. Come back. Now, in your quest to get into present time, what you are unearthing in yourself is your charism. You are, for years and years I hear people saying, they're searching, they're seeking, they're seeking, they're searching, and yada, yada, yada. And so often someone will say, and has said to me, although they don't dare anymore, I know I was born for something special. Oh, Christ. If I have to hear that again. But there's a reason you feel that way. There's a reason everybody is feeling some sense of that. And it's like an insanity pill heaven has given you. Slipped you in the middle of the night to get you going on becoming fascinated with yourself. It's kind of a holy implant that heaven has slipped you in the night so that you can't bear to be still or passive or quiet about your own life, so that you take up the quest of pursuing who you are as a passion, and not just who you are, but for what reason, God, did you give me life? What am I doing here? So that you go in search of, and you'll start searching at the exterior level. You'll start searching like an ordinary mortal through the first floor of your house. Is this my job? Is this my job? Is this my job? You'll start searching for a job. And then maybe you'll progress to a career, but what you are looking for is your calling. You are longing to have God call you by name, even though you have not articulated that. What you are longing for is to identify your charism. What is the name of your soul by which God knows you? What is the grace, your charism, your unique grace that only you have? That is your soul, your charism. That somehow it is that grace that is unlocked when you say in a prayer. When you say in a nothing makes you feel like a 6-year-old more, right? When you say in a prayer, how can I help this person? Or when you say, let grace run through my hands to this person. Don't tell them, but it's you and me. Let's do it. What is unlocked is your charism. Your charism. You have to understand that the way to your grace is inside, not outside. It's through humbleness. It's through your capacity to learn to be invisible in the world, not visible. To fly off the radar, not on the radar. And so that struggle with, see me, the struggle with the first floor, which is, I know I was born for something special, is the struggle you're going to have to beat. It's the struggle with the incredible simultaneous need that was born out of this birth of individualism. This birth that says, everything I think, say, and do is important. I have to process everything. I have to process every word ever said to me, oh, for Christ's sake. I'm so important that every one of my opinions matters. None of your opinions matter. Deal with it. The best thing you can do is throw your own funeral and see how many people show up. Not kidding. Run your obituary, see who shows up. Sit in the balcony, get a coffin, see who shows up, and then you realize, wow, this is not good. And then you realize their life is going to be fine the day after you're buried, and they're going to go on as always. Their lives won't skip a beat, not a beat. Not a beat. Maybe a little beat, maybe a blip. But their lives will go on just fine. Their lives will go on just fine. It's very humbling to do, to think about. And that's exactly the kind of perspective you need to have, which is, yeah, maybe 20, 25 people, and alrighty then. And within a week, you know what I'm saying? It's all over but the crying. What?
It's true.
Of course it's true. Of course it's true. I make things up about stocks, but not this. It's absolutely the truth. That's the perspective you have to have when you think your problems are when you think something's so important that you get to stop someone else's life, or that you should stop. This is how you have to think. It's time for me to host my funeral again. And you realize nobody's going to come, so what am I doing here? That's how important your opinion is. That's how important. And I don't mean this. Believe you me, I am not insulting you. I am trying to get you to put yourself in perspective that there is nothing in this world that is that important for you to lose your soul over. Nothing. Nothing. There isn't anybody that's that important that what they say to you should stop you in your charism. Nothing. So when you close your eyes and you say, God, what do you want me to do? The last thing you should do is say to yourself, what will they think? Since when do you care what they think? Who's the they? Who's the they? There isn't one they out there who should have more authority over your inner life than you. Nobody. And the moment you think, what should they think? That is where you draw the line. Could you get some water, darling? Okay. You draw the line because you think, you know what? Thinking like this could prevent a miracle. This could prevent me from healing. If I give power to what they think, it could stop me from healing very fast because I might have to think that I owe them an explanation as to how I could have healed this fast. So I'm going to ask you something. Am I making any sense here? Now, do I have any questions on any of this so far? Yeah. Yeah, we'll go this way. Darling, are you all right? Okay. All right, then give it all you got. Put your heart into it. Go on together. Yeah.
So
ahead.
when I hear you say everything that your analogy about the building and about the words, everything is beautiful. And the way I think of it is, in corporate America, the communities that have built the technology that we have today to enable us to merge the yin and the yang. Yeah, we need that mindset. The analytical, technical mindset has allowed us to merge as one community globally. However, I also see the first floor thinking in every single CEO and every single person that's also helped us be in the state that we're in today. And it's almost like there's this energy, there's an archetype for the CEO, for the CFO, there's like an energy that was left there, and this person now has to come and fill the shoes of that archetype, even if it violates their own belief, and it's almost like selling their soul to be there.
What's your question?
So the question is, how do you go about detaching from the archetype of the role that you're in? As opposed to, it's more than detaching from the archetype that you were born with. Is detaching from the
title.
archetype
You're
of
talking
the
title. It's not but that, you, first of all, I'm going to have a rule here. I'm going to ask you to respect this for yourself. Ask the question with an I. How do I go about detaching from the title? Because you're asking me as if I'm not attached to the title. How do I detach? So are you attached to the title?
I'm not, but few people can just leave
All right.
everything they built for their whole life.
Right. Few people can, but whether or not you're attached to CEO or being Mrs. and you're widowed or divorced, or Mr. and you're a widower, it doesn't matter what title. This is where Buddha illusion comes in. It's what life you had that you do not have anymore. It doesn't matter. You had, whether it's the title of CEO or CFO or ABC or PhD, or it doesn't matter. You were once this and now you're not.
But for the people that are there,
Yeah.
so that we can have a global shift, we need to help them see how to detach from the archetype of the role they're in. I feel. And I haven't figured out.
I don't think
how to.
you may want to go through that door, or it may be that you want to inspire them instead of detach. The word inspire might be more effective. And you might want to inspire them to see the effectiveness of working as a global unit. Instead of asking them to give up who they are, ask them to use who they are. Because you're approaching them as though they're mistaken and they're wrong and they're in big trouble and shame on them. Instead, you're punishing them for who they are instead of inspiring them to rise to its highest capacity, which would take you to rise to that capacity and get over your hostility. You need to go in the kitchen and peel potatoes. Yeah.
I believe that you said something about that nobody should get in the way of my inner life. And is the only way to do that sometimes is to be like in constant prayer, asking to...
Oh, Jesus, no.
Then, okay, can you... what's the path to do that, to do this?
To get in your inner life?
To not let a person or a situation keep you there.
You know what? I try my best to live what I teach 24/7 without living what I teach 24/7. Okay? Which means I never take myself to my own extreme ever. I never get carried away. I never ever, and yet I'm always mindful of everything that I teach to the best of my ability. So I am always mindful that I'm in a field of grace with everybody. And yet I don't ever treat myself as if I don't have a mouthful of swear words at the ready. I know exactly who I loathe in Washington, and I have no intention of changing that. I don't care how much on the first floor I am. I know what evil looks like. I know exactly what evil looks like. And I can walk up to the penthouse and say, that's an illusion, and then I say, bull. And I come right back down to the first floor. And I have a rough time with it. Okay? So I am living this with you every single second. But I live it with you every single second. When I tell you that we are working to get in present time, I am working with you every moment, but I know that this is the only journey to be on. When I'm telling you that you pray for the presence of God in your life and that happens in a second, I know that for a fact. I can't, if I could give it to you with the depth to which I believe it, I would. And I am telling you that we live it in every moment. So when someone makes you crazy, that's the moment that you say, I need a download of grace and I need it fast. You better get here right now because I'm about to blow. And then you find your heart suddenly go, and you're okay. And that's when I'll stand there in the hall all by myself and say, I cannot get over you. I really can't get over you. Just when I was about to blow. And one time I was praying like that and someone heard me. And I was like a bloody idiot. But I didn't care because I thought, just when I was about to lose it, bam! Because I pray exactly that way and I expect God, and I'm never disappointed. Not ever, not ever, not ever, not ever. And I know, like when I go down the streets and I see homeless people and they're everywhere, and I cannot get over that and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I think, except for the grace of God, go I think it with every single person. And who, I had a cab ride in Chicago. No matter who we passed, this cab driver gave him money and said, bless you, bro. Bless you, bro. I was so touched by this cab driver, I could hardly breathe. So I tipped him $50. And I said, here, this is for your mission, because it's a mission. And I thought, thank you, God, for giving me him. Thank you, God, for giving me him, because I deal with the homeless shelter. And this was my way to help the home, and we just passed it on. No matter where you can find your practice, you find your practice. Just live it the best way you can. And catch yourself when you're out. Catch it. You know, I don't know where I was. Where the hell was I? Oh, I came home. I was on some tour somewhere, whatever. I was so tired when I came home. I was brain dead. I was brain dead. I think I was all over Australia. I don't remember. But I came home. I was so, I was touring Canada and England. My last was in Edmonton. And I got home on a Sunday night. And I had been on the road for almost 6.5 weeks. And you are brain dead. I mean, you're brain dead. You don't know what time zone. And I get a call from this young priest telling me that I have a call, an interview the next morning downtown Chicago with the Catholic Jesuits and the head of the sisters of the whole United States. She's going to be there, and he gives me this hit list. And I said, no, no, and Carolyn, this is where, and da-da-da-da. And I'm telling you, it was like telling me I had to sleep with 3 dead fishes. I was so, you've got to be kidding. I got up that next morning. I was so tired. There wasn't an ounce left in me. Nothing. There was nothing left in me. Nothing. And I had to drive downtown in Chicago. And I should have taken a cab, but I didn't. And all the streets are different one-ways from when I was younger and this, and I didn't know where I was going. I drove the wrong way down this. I couldn't find I was irritated. I was I didn't have one spare ounce of energy anywhere. I was short. I was angry. I was angry, angry, angry. I finally find this parking space, and as I pull it to back in, someone pulled in. I get out. I get out of my car. I get in my car, and I open fire. I mean, I opened fire. It was bad. It was not pretty. Bam, bam, bam. And this man turns around, and he says, "Lady, what is What's wrong with you? It's a loading zone. It wasn't even a parking spot. But it's how unconscious I was. But then he says, shame on you. He said, you know, you got a mouth in the gutter. No. And I was standing in a gutter. And I had taken out my horrific exhaustion on this man. I was exactly where I was supposed to be, in the gutter. Exactly. I couldn't have been better located at all. I was so ashamed of myself and how I had abused this person. And I took out my exhaustion and my So then I got in my car on my way to an interview with the head of the Jesuit nuns for the National Catholic Reporter. Oh boy, so I get in, and then in front of me it's a parking space. And I thought, so I am a basket case. I'm filled with dread and shame, and I'm shaking. I'm just tremors. So I get, oh honey, thank you. So I get up to the 9th floor. And only a young priest would offer a woman a basket full of Dunkin' Donut holes, right? Look what I've got for you. Do I look like I want to? You idiot. But anyway, thanks for the fat, right? So anyway. So he opens up. I am so like out of it. My eyes are swollen from crying, right? And he looks at me and he says, I went, And he said, oh, well, I have some Dunkin' Donuts. I'm so upset that I go there and I'm shoving them in my mouth because I can't talk. And I have powdered sugar all over. And he said, do you want, touch me, right? So I said, I'm just so hungry. I said, I'm just so hungry. He said, I can see that. I can see that. And so then we had to do this interview. And I thought, if you were any older, if you were just an old man, I'd go to confession, but you're a punk. And just, forget it. I need an old ripe priest here. And you're just not it. You're just not it. You don't have enough limbs on the trunk to be a priest for me. You're just a punk. I need the real McCoy. I need a bishop, something in a cardinal, but not you. You know, anyway, from there, did this interview, and I walked out when I got in my car. I said, I'm telling you, you are a piece of work. You are a piece of work. It never fails. That the lesson's always there. And so now I have that, and I can still see that man. And I still say, I'm sorry to him. But I have to live it every day. And I remind myself that I'm capable of that. And I'm also capable of having the most profound mystical experiences. And so are you. And so are you. The flaws don't stop the light at all. That's the wonder of it. I've had the most extraordinary mystical experiences, and then driving home I've said to someone, move your ass off get out of my way. I don't get, God's designed us that way. Just live it. Anyone else? Yeah.
Just a little download I was given a couple of months ago.
Are you British or Australian?
Australian.
Yeah, I thought Aussie.
And it was just a whisper. And it came, you're not here to save others, you're here to live the saved life.
Yeah.
And that, mate, was a huge shift for me. My foot came off the accelerator and I just went, just go with it. Just be allowed to be taken instead of thinking I'm driving the car. So.
Yeah. It's great. I have something I want you to focus on this evening. Something because we're going to work on this tomorrow. It's just a really rich question that maybe you don't often reflect on. But, what really is God for you?
Say again, please.
What really is God for you? What is God for you? What kind of image do you have? What is that for you? And when you think about that, have you a GPS? Like, have you located God off planet? Have you put it like off there, in there? Where is it? Where is this being? Is it a being? How do you experience God? What is your experience of the divine? What is that for you? Is it a present force? What is it for you? Is it a mental idea, something you talk about, something you doubt? What is it for you? What is the sacred for you? And what is holy for you? Do you hear music or is it me? Yeah. Oh, okay.
We're not dead yet.
Okay, right. Floating up. Okay. All right. And just, if you can, even if you talk it over dinner, stir these waters in you with these questions, because they're really, really important. Okay, and I shut my workshop off at this time, and part of the reason is because your mind starts shutting off and your emotions wake up. So you're about to get sleepy. And this is the time when you start kind of getting drifty, and your mind begins to turn off and your emotional body starts to turn on. This is when you get that feeling of saying, I've had enough. Let's go get a drink. And you want to change atmospheres, and it's archetypal. And so you stop remembering things as well after 3:30, because this is when your mind starts passing things down to your heart, and your heart will start talking somewhere around 4 o'clock. Say, let's get out of here, let's go get out of this atmosphere. And your mind, and then your vocabulary changes, and you start saying, I know what I said, but here's how I feel. So your feeling apparatus is about to take over. And that's a good thing. So you'll start feeling your way through everything we talked about. And that's why we shut down at this hour. And you might want to go take a nap. You might want to just go close your eyes. That's what this time is about. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It's the truth. And that's why so many people want to get out into a dimmer atmosphere or go, because this is that. And then somewhere between 3:30 and 4 in the morning, your emotions shut off, and your mind takes over. That's why you wake up about that time. You start organizing your day, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's usually you perk up around 5 in the morning. Okay? So those are the hours. All right, any last minute questions before I let you go?
It's not really a question. I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing how happy you are in fulfilling your purpose or fulfilling God's will. I just recently, finally, after, 30 years, finished the Course in Miracles. And one of the passages I had that was the most difficult, or still is for me, is that, once you're doing the will of God, how happy it makes you. I keep questioning that. And this is like the answer to it. Look, you're a living example of how happy you've become because you are following the will of God. So thank you very much.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it said that. It's true. Yeah, it's really true, isn't it? Yeah. It doesn't make sense, but it's true. It's the truth. I think that's the whole secret, is you finally stop thinking you know better. And you don't know how to think that way. You don't know, like, well, what does that mean? Do I just sit around and, like, when are you going to take over? Here's my bills, It's, but it starts out by stop fighting things that have to happen. Start that way. Stop fighting things that have to happen as if because they have to happen, they're wrong. My cousin died. She was my closest, she was like my beloved sister. I've lost so many people these last 2 years. And we were together 65 years. Okay? There isn't a day that goes by I don't see her in my heart. Not a day, not a minute. But I can't tell myself it was wrong, right? I can't do that. I can't sit back and say, oh my God, how could it happen? Da, da, da. I can't do that. I can't do that. It was her time. So I can't do that. I'd rather have her here, but it was her time. And it doesn't stop me from missing her, but I can't go that place. Well, once upon a time I would have. And that's the difference. Do you see? I can't go there anymore. And even if I can't, and somehow I think that's grace. That's just grace. Where you start out by telling yourself there are things that happen in life and it's not personal. There are things that you have to move with and it's not. Then you have to look at the things in your life and say, this is the way my life is and I think it's perfect the way it is. Stop telling yourself things are not perfect. Stop telling yourself something's missing. Redecorate your interior. Redecorate your interior. The language with which you speak to yourself is so important. Don't curse your life. You wake up blessing your life. You wake up thanking. You don't say something's missing. There's nothing missing. You got it? That's how you start releasing yourself. And you don't, it's because the other way, it's like you're telling God every day you screwed up. And that's not going to get you anywhere, I can promise you that. You don't say prayers like, nothing's enough, this isn't enough, this isn't enough. That's how a lot of people pray. Where's this, where's that? And you're not scoring any points with the invisible world. You got to make a big deal out of things. Like, it's just a big deal. A full plate of food is a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to have an opportunity to be with a group of people in a beautiful place with abundance and studying and saying, I have 3 days to spend and talk about you in my soul. This is a big deal. Thanks. It's a big deal. It's a huge big deal. Thanks. Well done. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Would I end with a prayer? Well, maybe. Let me see. Okay. I'll pull a little rabbit out of my hat here, Joanne. Okay. Let me see. Which prayer did I read to you last night?
Well, you could repeat it. It was a good one.
Yeah. Let me see. Well, I think I pray. I breathe with all living creatures.
Yes, yeah.
That's what I read last night, didn't I? And this morning I did a time for holy listening, right? Okay. Okay, we'll try this one out. I spent this day in deep reflection about the intimacy of you in my life, the divine, necessary, personal counsel. In the prayer, I released my hands from the steering wheel of my life, requesting that you, God, take over. I could feel that I was being directed to do something, to see something clearly, but what was it? Finally, I uttered the powerful prayer, take charge, I cannot see my way. Whatever needed to be released from my life, whatever needed to happen, I would not look back. I would only go forward, and within hours, a seemingly small incident occurred. Then it escalates. By morning, a heart-shattering event is the result, and the answer arrived. My life is drastically changed, and just like that, I'd been going on one path, planning for one future. And now I was on a different path, planning for a different future, just like that. I retreat by habit, by spiritual gravity, into the silence of my interior castle. I am breathless for heaven's response, from the speed and from holy intimacy. I'm confused. Why allow me to go in one direction in the first place? Now a part of my life just evaporated. I had asked for clarity. I had asked heaven to take charge, and now I must gather the pieces of the consequences. In my inner castle, I sense the fracturing of my heart, and then just like that, heaven sends the remedy. The comforting presence of beloved friends pour in. I let the love flood into my heart like a salve on an open wound. I feel myself fall even deeper into mystical silence. I am now just a witness to the two sides of my heart, one fractured, one absorbing love. I remember the myth of the two wolves in a dark, cold cave, one pacing with bitterness and one calmed by love. The cave dweller must select one to represent the consequences of the injury life had just given him. Which one will carry the wound out of the cave? The wolf of bitterness or the wolf of love? In times past, I've chosen bitterness and watched that wolf leave the cave on my behalf. I wanted the wolf to attack the world as it had wounded me, and I would not be responsible for those attacks. Who can control a wolf? But that wolf only bit me again and again, and now wiser, I chose that wolf that carried love. I visualized a silk thread and mended my heart in the darkness of the cave, careful not to seal it completely closed. I mended it just enough to stop the bleeding, and I dwelled in awe and gratitude that one prayer uttered in silence while standing in my kitchen was heard with such speed. Whispers reach heaven. I stayed in the silence of my cave for a long time, healing the fractured side of my heart. And then I felt my rich creature nature rise up and take its place once again in the vast expanse of me, turning this inner cave into my brilliant interior castle. I felt it sparkle and the life force ripple into every cell of my being, animating every perception. I could feel my essential self rising from the debris of my life I thought I was going to have, already fading from view. I could feel the whole of myself fully. This is who I am in this lifetime. Know thyself, and you will know the universe. I bow to you, Lord, and to your intimate presence in my life.